Good morning, all. Thank you all for being here. For the TTU K-12 Advisory Board members, I will remind you, please turn your cameras on. That is a requirement for the Open Meetings Act since we're doing a virtual meeting. We will give it another minute or so, and then we will get started. Also, to comply with Open Meetings Act, this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. And so that's also why we've got to keep cameras on, but microphones muted. So we will start in just a minute. We're missing one other advisory board member. And once they arrive, we will get started. She's got two, we don't have it. Oh, no, we did, we got three, so she's got it. Okay, there's that. And then Candace does not have to show.
Yes.
Hide on video. Okay, all right. Okay, it looks like all 4 of our 5 advisory board members are here. So we are going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. I will also be recording this meeting just to help with transcripts and minutes. So, all right, we are now live and being recorded. So I will call this meeting to order, and I thank you all for being here. Before we get to the minutes, I've got some housekeeping items I need to do, again, because this is our first virtual meeting, so bear with me. Here are some guidelines and reminders so that our meeting complies with the Open Meeting Act. Virtual meeting guidelines. This meeting is being live streamed. Please change your name on Zoom to show your full name. Advisory committee members should always have their cameras on. Please mute your microphone when not speaking. Please unmute or raise your hand if you have a question or comment. Please do not use the chat feature in Zoom because that is not being live streamed. And so we cannot send private chats. Please wait until the previous speaker finishes completely before speaking so audio will pick up completely. Don't place phones close to the microphone, and be aware of placement of iPads and other devices during Zoom meetings. So with that, I've gone through all of our housekeeping items. The last thing is, if any committee member turns their camera off during the meeting, that could reduce our quorum and mean we are no longer able to continue the meeting. So if a committee member needs a break or something like that, we can adjourn for just a minute for a break, and then we can come back. Before starting, I'm going to ask Ryder Smith, who is our attorney from General Counsel's office, if I have missed anything with the open meetings rules for virtual meeting.
No, Justin, I don't believe so. It looks like your camera is not currently connected, though.
Well,
there we go. I can see you now.
okay. Well then, all right. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you, Ryder.
Of course.
So we have called this meeting to order. Before we get to our minutes, we do have a new advisory committee member who has taken the place of Doyle with LISD. And so I will ask Damon if you would like to do a quick introduction.
Hello, everybody. I'm David McCall. I'm an executive principal for Lubbock ISD, and I know a couple familiar faces. Hi, Kayla. She was my boss for quite a while out at Roosevelt, and I've worked with Sid for quite a while too. So, and then worked with Dr. Leach as well. So I'm excited to be a part of this, and look forward to kind of getting my feet wet here and learning about what we do. So thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. And we do have one additional advisory committee member who is one of our parents, a parent of a former TTU K-12 student but she has been unable to join us yet this morning. She may still log on, but even if she does it, we do have quorum with Margaret, you, Sid, and Kayla here. So we'll continue down to item 2 in our agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. The last time this group was together was the 1st of November, and we did meet in person and over at the Texas Tech Club. You should have received the minutes via email sent out along with the materials for this meeting. I will ask if is there a motion to accept, or are there any any corrections, modifications, or additions that need to be made to the minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes as recorded.
Sid moves that we accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Kayla, you second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Do not use the Zoom hand feature, just raise your hand so we can count votes. And we have, oh, no, she actually got dropped off, but it's okay, we're still quorum. So we do have a vote to approve the minutes as emailed. Thank you all. Next item on our agenda is the public comment period. And I will ask Mr. Kerry Salee if there were any public comments submitted for this meeting.
There were none, sir.
Okay. There were no public comments submitted for this meeting, and we do not have anyone from the public in this room or joining us on the Zoom. So we will continue in our agenda to item number 4, which is the TTU K-12 update. We're going to talk enrollment and staffing, and I will turn that over to our principal and Carrie Morey and Dr. Lisa Leach.
Perfect, thank you. Enrollment, we are getting ready to get our full-time students started in August, and we're going to go over a calendar here in a little bit that will coincide with the enrollment conversation that we're having now. Our numbers appear to be trending about where they were last year, so I think we're on track for the amount of new students that will come into the program. As far as staffing, we have several open positions, as most districts do in the state of Texas right now. So it's probably not any news to you that we are looking for several people, including a testing coordinator, a diagnostician, and assistant principal.
So if you know anybody, we do hire retired people, as you may know. And so if you know anybody who might be interested in those positions, either full-time or part-time, please let them know that we are looking.
Yes, absolutely. The staffing shortage for educators across the state has been an issue for the year. We've been really lucky to retain teachers, and we haven't had a difficult time finding teachers and retaining them. But for some of these other positions, they have been a little bit harder to find. That's where we're at.
Any questions from the advisory committee members? Excuse me.
If you don't mind, can I give a little bit of background for Damon?
Sure.
So Damon, we have a number of different programs. The program that you all are involved in is our new, as of this year, tuition-free full-time program that's funded by the state. And so our advisory board is a requirement of that particular program and the state requirements that go with it. You all were approved by the State Board of Education in lieu of a school board because we report to the Board of Regents. We couldn't have a Board of Regents and a school board both charge of us. And so the State Board of Education created this concept of the advisory board. So we have the full-time tuition-free program. We still have a full-time tuition paid program that allows students more flexibility. We don't have to adhere to as many of the state requirements and guidelines and progress monitoring, et cetera. And so there are some parents who really prefer that flexibility, and so they stay in our tuition paid program. We have a supplemental program where we serve anywhere between 10 and 15,000 students per year, where they're enrolled in other districts and they take just one or a few courses with us in order to advance or remediate or just make room in their schedule for other types of activities. And then our last program is our international program. We have a very large international partner in Brazil, and those students are in a concurrent diploma program where they are earning a diploma from their home country, but they are also earning a Texas diploma and meeting the requirements of Texas. And so that's been a longstanding relationship and one that continues to grow. We keep adding international partners. So those are really our four big programs. We have a credit by examination program as well. So there's lots of moving parts, but our focus for y'all is that full-time tuition-free program.
And I apologize, Damon, I should have given you a better overview. Do you have any questions? I'll stop here and ask if you have any questions.
Well, I do. Is this tuition-free program, is it an online program or is it?
It is.
Everything we do is online and asynchronous. Meaning
Okay.
students work at their own pace. We do not have like a teacher and students together during a synchronous Zoom session, except for teacher office hours and tutoring sessions. We do those live via Zoom or another Zoom-like program. But our coursework, and that's really the center of our entire program, is our coursework. That our courses are developed internally. We have an instructional design team that works with our course authors that are certified teachers. We build those courses and the teachers then just facilitate those courses. Our teachers do not lesson plan. They just help the students work through the content from point A to point Z. And if they will work through that content, they are very, very successful at the end, but it is all asynchronous.
So what would an assistant principal do?
That's a great question. I'll let Carrie answer that.
So this position that's open oversees our teachers, which is about 70 teachers that directly report to this assistant principal. And also assists with any type of parent escalation, parent concern that may come through the administrative offices, but primarily looking at teacher support. So that can be support as in technology sometimes. How do I get this to happen? How do I certify a grade? Can be instructional. You know, having a student is not grasping this concept. I need some ideas. What do I do next? It can, they're very much a liaison between our team, the administrative team, and the team that builds these courses. So if the teacher sees a lesson in there and they're like, man, this really would be better if we could add this in there, we relay that over and help make sure that those pieces are connected between our teachers and our content developers. But primarily teacher support and parental support.
And they do walkthroughs, virtual walkthroughs for all of our teachers. So we're monitoring the interactions that they have with students, the frequency of those interactions, the timeliness. We expect our teachers to respond to students very quickly. So those are the kinds of things that this particular AP will do. We also have an associate principal who works with supervises our advisors, our international team, our supplemental team, and has really a very big job there. And then we have our special services director, who is an equivalent to an assistant principal position, but she handles all of our special ed, 504, et cetera.
You're muted.
Perfect, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Great questions.
Any other questions from the advisory board members on our K-12 update with enrollment and staffing? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to item 5 in our agenda, which is an update regarding special services. And I'll turn that over to Dr. Lisa Leach.
We have made tremendous progress in serving our students with special needs. It was a little rocky when we got started. We basically set up our tuition-free program on September 1st, but we were not able to hire the staff that we needed because we couldn't advertise for those positions until September 1st, which is the fiscal year for Texas Tech. So it took us a little while to get all the right people in the right places on board. And then, of course, we were behind on arts. So by the time we got our staffing where we needed it to be with our program director and our diagnostician, we then had to play catch up and try to get those arts done. So we are now compliant
We are.
with all of our ARDs. We have had to really think outside the box in terms of how do you serve students in a completely virtual environment. And we have not had a great deal of assistance from the Texas Education Agency in getting that accomplished. So we have made our best faith efforts to serve students with exactly what they need if it is appropriate in an online setting. And so we have an entire battery of special education assessments that actually was developed and normed by Pearson. So we use virtual assessments for almost all of our special ed evaluation areas. And then we provide virtual therapies. So we have a contractor that will help us with speech therapy if we need it. Various therapies that our students may be appropriate. So most of our accommodations are done within our systems because our systems are fully accessible to any student with a handicap. And that's true at the university level as well. All of our online programs meet federal standards. And so we just take each student where they are and we try to make it fit as best we can. It's not an appropriate placement for all students, we know that, but for those students for whom it is an appropriate placement, it works very well. Anything else on special services?
I don't think so. We, just echoing what you said, we made a lot of progress. We are moving into this year to providing some additional services that will really enhance what we were already doing. So we're excited for this upcoming year. We purchased a few new programs and we've got extra contractors in place to be able to provide some new things. And we're excited to see the growth of our students in those areas.
Thank you, Lisa and Gary. Any questions from the advisory board on special services?
Yes, kind of out of curiosity, but one, is there a type of service or a need a student has that you're finding difficult or almost impossible to meet and you're having to kind of reroute? Is there anything in that category? And then I'm not wishing a report on you, but I'm wondering, because this is so new, are you having to share state level or federal level, how that starts to look when you change the setting for those services? And I'm not wishing, I want to say it again, not wishing a report on you.
Yeah, we don't want that either, no, but it's a great question.
It is a great question. And our legal counsel, Ryder Smith, is on the call and he has been extremely helpful in helping us navigate some of those trickier issues. We are, and I should just go ahead and put this out there, we are under a corrective action plan from TEA for special education because of our timelines, because we were delayed in getting our ARDs caught up. And so we are working through that corrective action plan. And really, we are in good shape. We are caught up. We're meeting each step of the corrective action plan, and we should have that resolved within the next several months.
I think just to give you an example to answer some of your questions, some of the harder services to accommodate our students who need assistance in toileting. So life skills, really basic life skills. That is hard to do in online, but it's been very hard for us to finally do that in an asynchronous environment because you're not meeting in a face-to-face. And even if we were, we don't want to provide toilet training via Zoom, and so there are some things like that. Students really who are if they're in a self-contained classroom all day coming from a public school, that's harder to accommodate. And it's usually those life skills that we find to be difficult.
We really look for students who can access our general curriculum. And so the guaranteed access to a viable curriculum is really important. And so we can provide lots of ways for them to access the curriculum, but they have to be able to, at some level, access that curriculum. Otherwise, it's not an appropriate placement. And just as a reminder, every one of our students has a geographic home district. So we are not their only option for FAPE. They have an assigned home district, and if they need services in person, that home district is there and can provide those.
Well, I appreciate that so much. And you've got to be just on the absolute bleeding edge of figuring out how to do some of this stuff. So I appreciate you tackling it and thinking through, making plans. It's really interesting part of your work for sure. So thank you.
Bleeding is a very appropriate to use. And Damon, one more background piece. We were established in 1993, so 30 years ago, by the Texas Education Agency, the State Board of Education, and the legislature to be an option for students for whom a traditional school setting was not the most appropriate. So we serve all sorts of students who just have a huge array of needs. And if you think of your bell curve, we're kind of over here on the edges of your bell curve. Students who are extremely bright and they need to accelerate and they need to be able to move forward at their own pace and not be, kind of slowed down. We've had lots of those students come through. We also have students who have severe medical needs or for whatever reason cannot be in a traditional setting. And so we run a whole gamut of the students that we serve.
Yeah, it sounds challenging. It was challenging for us to try to serve special ed needs when we were in the COVID year. And
Right.
I don't think you're alone on corrective actions for delayed services across the state. So,
Yeah, we don't think we're the only one. They
no.
have their hands full, I think.
Yeah, and Sid, if you ever hear of any services you think would benefit us, one area that we're also really trying to figure out is when you have a student and where the general curriculum is not appropriate, and if you remove them from that, then they're not in their least restrictive environment anymore, because we're in an asynchronous program. They're in a class all alone with no other peers, no other support. So it becomes real tricky, but we'd love to have some consults and answers if anyone has any.
And another example that we're dealing with right now is we have a visually impaired student who needs physical assistance, learning to use a cane, some of those sorts of things. And so we're working with that student's home district to provide some physical services as appropriate. And, just for each student, just like y'all do, we're trying to make it work.
You could ask Margaret to travel for us.
Sure, Margaret.
Yeah.
What are you doing next week?
All right.
I don't think I'd be much help. Justin, you better get your mom on those VI kids.
All right. Any other questions on special services? Okay, we will continue in our agenda to item number 6. These are the 3 action items. Each item does need to be voted on individually by the advisory board. So we will take all of these items on its own and do a vote afterward. Our first action item is the allotment and TEAC certification survey and IMAT approval. And so with this, I will ask Carrie Moya to give us an update on this and the request.
Yes, so we would, I would propose now that we are able to claim, that you would approve that we can claim the $762.88 that's been allocated to TTU K-12 for the instructional materials that we will use for books and technology services that were purchased this year.
And that's $103,000.
Yes, $103,762.88. That has already been allocated to us. We just had to fill out, I completed the first portion of that survey. It does require that we list board approval. We don't really have a board in the sense that they're asking for, but I wanted to go ahead and bring this before the advisory board in the same sense and ask that that be approved for us to receive that funding.
Any questions about the allotment and TEAC certification survey and IMAT approval? I don't know, Carrie, if you can give a little idea of, you said books and technology. So
Yes,
maybe
so-
specifically what?
Absolutely. So the state has a list of approved items that you can use this allocation for. And so we have purchased all of our digital textbooks for our students and sent out those access codes all year long. So that's the first thing. I feel confident that that will take up that amount alone. But if there is additional funding left over, the next thing that would be approved on that list that we could use this money for would be for our Blackboard services, which is the LMS, the learning management system that we use. That is where our students log in and actually go through their course. That's where their content's at. That's where their teacher's at. And so we would be able to use this funding for that as well.
Any questions from the advisory board members?
What's the lowest age of student shall serve? Youngest children.
Kindergarten through 12.
So what are you guys using for a phonics program? I noticed you didn't pick any phonics programs on here.
We did pick that we were using, well, we have our general textbook that does provide phonics, but we also it shows selected for iStation.
So you're using iStation? Okay.
For a portion of it, it's the phonics is embedded in the general ed curriculum as well,
which is HMH.
yeah, the HMH, which should be selected on there as well.
Yeah, the HMH reading was, and then they have the HMH Saxon phonics, and it wasn't. So I was just curious if that's how you were doing it. It's not a big deal. I was just wondering.
Yeah, we don't use the Saxon phonics, but we do use HMH. It does have a good core phonics. I believe that's what Lubbock ISD was using last year was HMH as well. But yes, we do have, that is what's embedded into the general curriculum. But then also for a more intense phonics program, we have iStation, and then for those students who are identified as needing additional services, we use Amplio, which would be comparable to a Take Flat program that a lot of districts use, but it is specifically for online and approved through the state of Texas.
Thanks.
Any other questions about item 6? I'm going to say A, the allotment and TEAC certification survey and IMAT approval.
We have our IMA source on page 29 where you have not checked no on using the Texas Resource Review. I don't know without any other clarity than using it. I just used it to confirm that several of your HMA choices are 100% in the system. If you wanted to use that and click yes, you might could.
Okay, yeah, that's
Good to know.
that's great to know. And because I don't, to be honest, we have not looked through that. There are some free resources that in going through this process we've identified, and we're going to look into and see how maybe those can be utilized in the future. Either way, even if we can use that, we would still want to be able to allocate the spending to our Blackboard services.
Sure.
To be honest with you, we didn't know that we were eligible for the $103,000 until very recently.
Nice.
So luckily, we had put all of the things in place that we needed to in order to claim this money. But when we would ask some of our contacts at TEA what funding we actually can access, there is no real understanding. So,
and I've never requested access to this type of funding, so this is the first time for me as well, and a learning curve. So hopefully we've got everything checked on the form. I think the survey appeared to be more of they just really want to know what we're utilizing. And then after this form and this is approved, then we submit specific invoice type information to them for the reimbursement for those materials that we've already purchased this year. I believe that's my understanding of it.
And members, if the advisory board does approve this, because we do not have a formal school board, what we will be doing is we will type out a letter that says that the advisory board met on June 16, 2022 and voted to approve TTU K-12 to request these funds. And we will send that to each of you electronically for your electronic signature. And we will include that in with the follow-up request to TEA. That way they understand that we did have our advisory board review this, and if you decide to approve, review and approve it, and we will share that information with TEA. The survey does ask for our chair of the board. Of course, we don't necessarily have a chair. We have members, and then I serve as interim superintendent. So we thought by doing a letter signed by each of you, it would help with that approval process if there were any questions. Any other questions about item 6, the first item 6, allotment and teach certification survey? Hearing none, I would ask if there is a motion from our advisory board members to approve TTU K-12 moving forward with our request for $103,762.88 and the IMAP funding allocated by TEA.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Damon makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Margaret seconds. All those in favor, please signify by physically raising your hand so we can count votes. Okay, that is a unanimous vote, and thank you all. We will continue to move forward on this item. And like I said, you will receive, it'll come from probably Adobe Sign, and I'll just ask for you to click on it to sign your name that we'll forward to others. But that will be probably first part of next week. We're now continuing our agenda to our second action item, which is action item 6, I'm going to say B, which is innovative courses. And with that, I will ask Dr. Leach to give us an update there.
Okay. We have a fairly large number of career and technology education courses, but we had not, until this year, identified an actual program of study for our CTE programs. And so I've been working with Heather Blunt at the Service Center, and we are required to offer one due to the size of our district. So we are required to offer one complete program of study. We have identified 3 programs of study that we can reasonably, realistically offer in an asynchronous online setting. Obviously, it doesn't lend itself to all CTE types of courses, but there are some that work actually quite well. And in fleshing these programs of study out, we identified 5 innovative courses that we would like to include. And you all are required to approve any innovative courses that we choose to include in our programs of study. So those 5 courses are listed at the top of the document that says TTU K-12 CTE programs of study and course offerings. I put all of the first 2 pages are programs of study, and then I just put all of our course offerings by career cluster, just so you can kind of have an idea what we do offer. But the action that you all need to take or consider is approving those 5 innovative courses for us to include in our CTE programs of study.
So members, those 5 courses, as Dr. Leach said, are listed at the top. That would be marketing, the science of nursing, principles of exercise and wellness, kinesiology 1 and kinesiology 2. Are there any questions about these innovative courses? Okay, hearing none, I will ask if there is a motion to approve these 5 innovative courses for the TTU K-12 CTE programs of study for the 22-23 school year and moving forward.
Justin, I'll make that motion or move to approve the 5 courses.
Exactly. Thank you, Kayla. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Sid seconds. All those in favor of approving these 5 innovative courses for the 22-23 school year and moving forward, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, same sign. Okay. And that innovative courses passed unanimously. So thank you, members. Finally, our last action item, which I will call item 6C, is our academic calendar, and this is the academic calendar for the 22-23 school year. Although TTU K-12 is an asynchronous program and we allow students to kind of work at their own pace, we do need to provide some dates and checkpoints for our students as they work through the courses and calendar, especially as it comes through with EOCs and STAR exams. So we have developed this 22-23 course enrollment calendar. This is for our tuition-free program that was shared with members. And I will ask Lisa Leach and Carrie Morey to give us some more information.
Okay, and a clarification, what you have in that document is 22-23 and 21-22. We failed to get board approval for the 21-22 academic calendar, so we are bringing both of those to you at this point. We really strive to maintain our flexibility and at the same time make sure that our students are successful. So we set up our tuition-free program, as we mentioned, as of September 1st last year. That was a bit of a crunch in terms of getting the students through the academic calendar, so we have moved that back. And for next year, we will start on August 1st. And so that is the first day that students can begin their coursework. And they have the entire month of August to begin that coursework. So we're trying to give them that flexibility. A lot of our families want to be on the same calendar as their local school. They may have other children in a local school program, et cetera. And so it gives a time frame so that they can wrap their brains around that, but it also gives them a little bit of flexibility to work around their particular family situation. So we just have a broad calendar, and we're hoping that this is going to be approved by TEA once you all have considered it and hopefully approved it. We have the STAR testing dates on there for next year, just as a reminder to all our families when this goes out, that there is that expectation that their students will take STAR. That's been a bit of an issue because many of our families are not STAR fans, if you can imagine. But we do have to have that expectation.
So this calendar, as you can see, for first semester, course enrollments would open August the 1st, and they'll have any time between August 1st and August 31st to start classes. And then courses for the first semester should be completed no later than January 31st, or that is our recommended date. And the second semester course enrollments, students could start as soon as January the 15th, provided they have finished the first semester. And then courses can be started anywhere between January 15th and February 15th, with the courses being completed sometime no later than June 30th. And then we have specifically, as Dr. Leach mentioned, listed out the EOC and STAR testing dates and the subjects that are tested, so our families are aware of their expectation with STAR and EOCs. Are there any questions from the advisory board on the proposed 22-23 calendar and the retroactive 21-22 calendars?
As you all know, calendars are a lot more complicated than they would appear at first glance. That's always a point of contention in every district that I've been in as well. And so it's been hard to kind of find that balance between the flexibility that we want for our families and keeping them on track to promote and to be prepared to take STAR.
Any questions? Hearing none, I will ask if there is a motion to approve the tuition-free course enrollment calendar for TTU K-12 for 22-23 and retroactively for 21-22.
I move that we approve the tuition-free program academic calendar for both 21-22 and 22-23.
So,
I'll second.
okay, got names back. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the calendars as presented. All those in favor, please signify by physically raising your hand. All right, and it is unanimous. So we thank you all for voting on those items. Moving forward in our agenda, we now come to our item number 7, which are superintendent's updates. And so I just wanted to provide a few updates to the members on some things that are going on here at TTU K-12 and at Texas Tech in general, and do some updates that way. As Carrie and Dr. Leach have already talked about, we are seeing a staffing issue and bringing in new staff once we lose individuals. So we are trying to fill those 3 positions right now. Our elementary teachers will be working through the Reading Academy over this summer as outlined in legislation. And then we will also be starting processes to comply with House Bill 4545, which for next year, 22-23, which is the bill that requires students to have targeted tutoring or extra instruction on any STAR test that they may not have passed. So we are working through that, looking at the staffing needs there and the software and things that we might need for those students. We are also, as we continue to work through the requirements of STAR exams and EOCs, we're looking at ways to provide the exams or support our students throughout the state. If they cannot find a local school district to test in, how we can support them moving forward. Local districts are not required to test our students. And so those that have in the past have done so kind of, I'll say out of the goodness of their heart, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to find placements for some of our students outside in their home districts. And so we're working through that and thinking through some ideas. So that will probably, we will present the plan for that, as well as more information on House Bill 4545 at our next advisory board meeting, because that will be at the start of the new school year. And so we will outline everything that we're doing for students at that point. Next, there's been some reorganization at Texas Tech University, and all of you have met Dr. Melanie Hart at a previous meeting. Excuse me, Damon, you probably didn't, but Dr. Melanie Hart served as our Vice Provost for e-learning and academic partnerships for the past 8 years. Dr. Hart has been asked to lead a new division within the Office of the Provost, which is over outreach and engagement. And she's been asked to devote 100% of her time to that new division and new opportunities for Texas Tech. With that meant that there was an opening for Vice Provost for e-learning academic partnerships. And Dr. Brian Still, who is on this call on video, and I'll ask him to introduce himself in just a second. Dr. Brian Still is currently serving as the interim Vice Provost for e-learning and academic partnerships, which of course has general oversight of the TTU K-12 program. And so Dr. Still is a professor in our Department of English and is an expert in technical communication and online learning. And he, for the last year, has served as the interim dean of arts and sciences. So we are very happy to welcome him into the e-learning academic partnerships division. Dr. Still, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but I ask if you would like to turn your video on and give a brief introduction. And if not, that's just fine.
Hello, I don't really have much to say. It's good to meet everybody. I've learned a lot already in this call. So I look forward to working with all of you moving forward. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir. So like I said, Dr. Still is now the interim Vice Provost for e-learning academic partnerships. And one of the first things that he and I and the TTU K-12 leadership team have talked about is the need for a full-time superintendent. I have served as interim for the last 3 years and had that responsibility in addition to my associate vice provost for e-learning responsibilities. So as TTU K-12 continues to grow, add programs, add partnerships, and add students, and work through the requirements set forth in House Bill 3, which is the funding bill, and Senate Bill 15, which is the supplemental bill that was passed this last legislative session. We've decided that it is time to look for an additional resource for TTU K-12. And so within the next several weeks or so, we will launch a search for a superintendent to come in into the program and work with our faculty and staff. I will still, be in my role as associate vice provost for e-learning and still as a resource, but we think it would be great for the TTU K-12 school to have a dedicated full-time or part-time, whatever that might be, a dedicated superintendent. So we will be working through that. Not sure how the selection and the search will go, but I would imagine because each of you are part of our advisory board, and the advisory board has been tasked by the State Board of Education as serving in that advisory committee setting and work with our school, that you would be involved at some point or in some way, shape, or form in the search. But we provide more information as we figure that out and work forward with the search. We know that this we don't anticipate having somebody in place by September 1 because it's already June. But we do hope to find someone that has experience with online learning and understands the difference between emergency remote instruction and true online instruction following best practices of online pedagogy, as well as K-12 education in the state of Texas. So that will be coming, and more information will be shared as we kind of move forward with that. The last item I had is just as a kind of an FYI, we are as a division going through some modifications and redesign of our website. So if you go to the e-learning website or the TTU K-12 website in the next several months, you'll probably see a redesign there. But all the information that is pertinent to this group will still be readily available. And with that, I think those are my final updates, but I'm gonna look at Dr. Leach to see if I forgot anything that we talked about.
Do you want to get into the funding?
Oh, yes, I want to get into the funding. Okay, so I forgot the most important thing. As you all know, our state funded program, or our free tuition program, was funded through House Bill 3, which was 2019, so 2 legislative sessions ago. That House bill opened up what is known as Tier 1 funding for TTU K-12 and UT High School. And Tier 1 is $6,160 per student for a full-time successfully completion of the school year. Meaning the student has to successfully complete 4 classes in the academic year, or the school year, for Texas Tech K-12 to receive funding. There was no provision set forth for partial funding, so it was either all or nothing. So that meant if a student stayed with TTU K-12 until April and then decided to go to their home district, even though they did almost everything with us, there would be no provision for funding, and we would not get funding for that student, even though we had provided instruction and services for almost an entire year. So that was a significant drawback to House Bill 3. But then in the last legislative session, it was actually in one of the special sessions, Senate Bill 15 was passed. Senate Bill 15, among other things, has a provision that requires TEA to come up with a progression funding model for TTU K-12 and UT High School, which basically means that if a student does not successfully complete our program or the year, what type of partial funding would TTU K-12 receive? because we have, for the last year, made the case to TEA and others that even if a student does not successfully complete our program, we have still had significant outlay in terms of resources for that student throughout the year. And so Senate Bill 15 requires TEA to come up with a partial funding model. We have tried to communicate with TEA for the last year on a partial funding model. We were informed about a month ago that TEA has not come up with a partial funding model and may not come up with a partial funding model for this past school year, even though they are legislatively required to do so, set forth in Senate Bill 15. So what we have done is we have proposed our own partial funding model. We can back it up with PEAMS data and data from Focus, our SIS. And we have done all the work for TEA, and we have now sent it to TEA saying, here's a partial funding model that we can back up with data. And these are the numbers that we have. And so we have not received word back from TEA if it's been accepted or if they agree with us. They have indicated they've received it and they are looking at it. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we will find out if it is approved, and then we will get partial funding. Just to give you an idea, and these are not exact numbers, so I don't have them in front of my face at the moment, but if they do not go with a partial funding model, we are looking at a reduction in about $3 million in state funding for next year. Which is a significant decrease for us. If they do go with the partial funding model, it would be comparable to where we are this year. So we based our budget off of 1,400 students at TTU K-12. And as of, I guess, a week ago, we went through some data and we've served 1,330 students. Now, not all of those students have successfully completed. That's why there is the need for the partial funding model. And so we are hopeful that TEA will agree with us. We have figured out this model and complies with the legislation, and we just need them to sign off and agree with it moving forward. TEA did suggest their own partial funding model, but it was based on 6-week completion and 6-week tests. We do not give 6 weeks tests. Our classes are not set up on 6 weeks. And there was no way for us to modify all 200 plus courses that we offer and impact all of our students to get to a 6-week model. So we told them that was not possible within our systems, and we proposed a model that we can back up with data and information that we have both from PEAMS and from our internal SIS focus system. So like I said, we're hopeful that it will be met with approval from TEA. We're just waiting to hear back from them. We received a message yesterday from the assistant commissioners and that they will be in touch with us in the next couple of weeks to set up a follow-up discussion to work through that. So with that, I'll ask if there are any questions. I know that was a lot of information to give out as an update, but we did want to make sure you were aware of these ongoing discussions. So any questions from the members?
So you get a $6,100 flat rate. Do you get weighted funding for your SPED students or anything like that? Or
We do get some weighted funding for SPED students.
Not federal, though. We only have state sped. We do not receive any federal, but
okay. Do your students do a completion like and forgive my ignorance, but so I know you don't give 6 weeks test, but I assume that there's checkpoints that they have along the way that they should like complete X numbers of the spot in a certain amount of time so that you know they're on track. I mean, is there a way of showing that progress, I guess?
We do have that. We do have what we call checkpoints within all of our courses. The problem there is that data, it's not clean when we start to pull it out of our LMS Blackboard. And it's very hard to align that to what you would think of as 6-week dates, because our students move as they, as we said, at their own pace. Some may complete them very quickly, some may take a little bit longer. And so there was no way to cleanly pull the data and be able to have that 6-week dates. And so that's why we said what we have proposed is what we're hoping that TEA will approve is a 50-50 model, which is 50% upon enrollment and 50% upon completion. That is a workable model for us, and we can back that up with data and dates and things like that.
That was the other issue with their 6-week proposal, is there's no PEAMS submission that would support that. You don't send in anything that has to do with 6-week grades. And so they just wanted to send us, they wanted us to send them an Excel spreadsheet with the names of students who had completed the first 6 weeks, the second 6 weeks, and the third 6 weeks. So, and again, we just don't have mechanisms to do that.
And that is ripe with a possibility of significant error. And then you are releasing PII in ways in which that it may not be fully secure. So it was just not a process that we either as the TTU K-12 leadership team or in talking with our CIO's office and information security and legal, really there was a way we could do this to where we felt that it would be secure and correct in sending it to TEA. So that's why we've made our proposal for a 50-50 model that can be backed up with information both in PEAMS and our SIS. Any other questions? Okay. With that, we will move to item 8 in our agenda, and so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Okay, thank you all. We stand adjourned, and as I said, our next meeting will be in the fall to coincide with the start of the new school year. Thank you all. We appreciate your support, your attendance today, and your guidance for TTU K-12. We wish you a great rest of your summer and look forward to visiting with you in the fall. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the updates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.